If we look at how people relate to food today, especially in the context of fermented beverages like wine and beer, we begin to see that consumption is not only about taste or price anymore, but also about meaning. There seems to be a growing desire for simplicity in a world that feels increasingly complex. And food becomes one of the spaces where people try to reestablish a sense of clarity, often through ideas of what is perceived as natural or authentic. From what we already know in the literature, consumers tend to associate fewer interventions in production with higher levels of naturalness. But when we look more closely, this relationship is not always consistent. For example, in the case of non-alcoholic wine, which is often perceived as more natural or healthier, the production process actually involves complex technological interventions. This creates an interesting contradiction between perception and reality. So, within this context, where technical, environmental, and cultural dimensions are interacting, the question is not only whether consumers value naturalness, but also how they construct this idea. Hi, my name is Gabriela. I am a Brazilian researcher, and my path into this field comes from working across different areas. I started in business management, then I moved into design and media, and over time I became more interested in understanding how people construct meaning, especially through communication, culture, and consumption. For the past 10 years, I've been working between academia and the social and corporate sectors, using mainly qualitative and mixed methods. More recently, studying cultural anthropology made me even more interested in how people understand ideas like natural. And this is exactly where my research within the SpoilControl project is positioned. We are trying to better understand two main questions. First, is there a demand for naturalness among consumers, particularly in relation to food and wine? And if so, what does this concept actually mean and represent? And second, to what extent is naturalness a relevant concept for understanding consumer expectations beyond the intrinsic characteristics of products? In terms of methodology, the project is designed to combine different approaches so I can look at naturalness from multiple perspectives. The idea is to work across qualitative and quantitative methods. This includes focus groups, social media analysis, and in situ observations to explore how people talk about and experience naturalness, as well as service and discrete choice experiments to evaluate preferences and trade-offs. There is also a comparative component between wine producers and consumers, and later an experimental market setting where behavior can be observed in a more realistic decision environment. In terms of expected outcomes, one of the key challenges today is that as innovation in food systems accelerates, it also increases the level of complexity that consumers need to navigate. In a context where there are many claims, labels, and new technologies, understanding what something like natural actually means becomes more difficult but also more relevant. The goal is for these insights to be useful for food researchers, wine producers, and consumers in understanding how naturalness shapes communication, perception, and decision-making in the sector.